And while that gets set up, I do like doing this. I'm going to take a selfie, but wait, let me first take one where you're all happy with me. Now, can you all look really mad at me for a second? Just look quickly. Okay, cool. I'll make up a story to fit that later. That's fine. Hi, my name is Sunil Pai. And I'm here to talk to you about something I've been working on recently. And uh, while we're talking about real-time computing and stuff, there's a big reason I picked the title, where everything's better with friends. It's kind of defined my career, uh, the people I've met, the things I've done, the places I've been. I want to take a moment to thank the entire organizing committee of React Miami. Such a wonderful conference. I've met so many wonderful people, not had one bad meal. I ate a lobster roll. I can't go back. It's been great. Also, a big thanks to the workplace accessibility group folks that have been doing such a phenomenal job today. It's just incredible. I look forward to disappointing you for the next 20 minutes. My name is Sunil Pai. I've worked in a bunch of places. I spent a year on the React team. Nobody talks about that. I worked in Oculus. I wrote React in VR, which was the most sci-fi job of my life. I loved it. I worked in a bank. I don't talk about that anymore. I did work in Cloudflare for a bit. I moved a little bit away, and I started. I worked in edge computing for a while, and it was fascinating technology. The fact that it actually exists today. Um, and I left it. The economy is in such a great place, and it's a time of global peace. So I decided to start my own company. Like nothing can go wrong with that, I think. And I was trying to think about what I want to work on, and I bumped into a couple of interesting ideas. The thesis for this talk, but also pretty much the next few years of my life, is that the future of the internet is multiplayer first. And it's a strong statement until you realize that this was the original goal of the internet, to connect people, to work together, not to be in the same room, etc. And over the last 3 years, nothing specific happened, but everyone started working from home. Which is not, even if you're in the same city, right? Like you're now on your couch and you drop a link to someone and say, hey, can you just jump on this doc with us? Or you'll say, can you get on a call with us? There are different types of collaboration. It doesn't even have to be real time. GitHub is collaboration. Email is kind of collaborative. Slack is like synchronous collaboration. You got to be there. If it scrolls up, you'll never see it again. Um, so, so the dream for building multiplayer real-time tech has always been there. Like since Star Trek, right? Picard hits the little communicator button and says, hey, dilithium crystal, something or the other. Um, but and WebSockets were actually introduced in Chrome in 2009. The spec came out in 2008. But where are all the multiplayer real-time apps? And it turns out writing the code is like one of the problems. The other problem is that the infrastructure is way too complex, limiting, and capital intensive. It's very expensive. You need to be a multi-billion-dollar company to do it, which is unfortunate because there are so many interesting use cases, even now, right out there. You can build collaborative whiteboards. If you're in VS Code, you click one button and live share, and you can share with someone else, and both of you are working on the same thing together. And of course, games. I took a snippet of Transport Tycoon because I played that a lot as a kid. I miss games like that. It's so good. Um, but if you have a look at this, there is something common to all these use cases. There's the idea of an artifact, an ID. It can be a song, it can be a drawing, it can be a document, it can be a project, a code base, music, though there isn't that much collaborative music because of latency and stuff like that, but that's what I'm trying to fix. And multiple people try to connect to this and work on it together. That is a common thing. So how do you build such an app? So I figured we'd actually do that right now. Like, let's actually try to build the most fancy multiplayer app that we can think about. This is a very esteemed audience. Everybody is developers. So the most complicated app I could think of is let's just build a counter. All right, simple enough. And the example I'm using is like Cloudflare workers. I work there, that's my bias, but it should work anywhere else, AWS, Vercel, Netlify, what have you. The example should basically work. The code shouldn't be too complicated. So let's have a variable, call it count, start at 0, and we have like a request handler that anytime you make a post method to it, we'll just update it and we'll send the rest of the response. We'll fill that in. Okay, so like so far so simple. For every request you make to a server, you're going to update it. I don't know if you've discovered this. I discovered this new programming language that's called HTML. It looks like JSX. Very convenient, but it comes with inbuilt interactivity, zero JS, like incredible stuff. So yeah, you make a little form that does a post, and you have a little input button that clicks it, and you do a submit back to the request. Okay, pretty simple. But this isn't really real time or multiplayer. So do you have any ideas for what technology we can use to make this real time? Any guesses? Like Angular, sure, I guess. No, more low level. Well, like what tech should we use? Like WebSockets. WebSockets is a good one. Anything else? Server sent events, amazing. So many options. All of them are bad. I decided to use a set interval that refreshes the page every 2 seconds. This is incredible. One line of real time. Okay, so now you see what we're doing, right? Like there's a form, you click a button, and like it just keeps refreshing. Uh, so this is the whole code for the thing. Like this is the entire application. It's a request handler that updates anytime you send a post and you send the form and what have you. Okay, so you try it out locally. By the way, look at the design system that comes shipped with the browser as well. Zero CSS. Like you're learning so much today. Amazing. So you build this you try it out locally. You click the increment button, and every time it updates, and you see the button. That's cool. And then you test it with two browsers. I'm using Safari and another browser from a small Seattle company called Microsoft. Very interesting shit they're doing nowadays. So you try that, and you click update, and the other side updates itself every couple of seconds. There you go. Multiplayer app done, right? Like it should just work. So let's just push it to the internet, right? Like you'll say, hey, Wrangler deploy, Vercel push, or FTP, or whatever cutting edge technology you're using for the day. And you start noticing a problem. So you reach out to your friends on Twitter. You shared the link to the site on Twitter. I assume most of JavaScript Twitter, internet is on Twitter anyway. So one person sees it and they start clicking the button. But the problem is another friend is not seeing the clicks no matter how long they wait on their machine, like on their laptop or their phone or anything. It doesn't really matter. Then like every group has that one couple that you always have to talk to together. Like you can't, like you're friends with one of them, but you have to tolerate both of them. They never go anywhere. So they are together, and they don't see the same clicks either, which is annoying because you always like to be better than them. Then there are 5 friends who went out for dinner. They didn't call you, of course, because you're such a busy guy. They make excuses, but they're saying the same thing. All of them around the table can see the same number, but they're not seeing the number that anyone else is seeing. So what's going on here? We built the code, we tested it. Why is it not working? The thing is that what we run locally, where we expect everyone is connecting to the same computer, the same process, the same node, isn't really how we deploy applications onto the internet anymore, right? Like we deploy it into these little clusters, one to US East one, or edge computing, or just different machine. Even if it's the same machine, you usually have like different processes running on the same machine. So what ends up happening is that each of these groups connects to a unique node somewhere that you've deployed this code, and they're seeing that value there. You're not really having shared state. This is not a great place to be in. So we can generalize this problem, right? Like your users are spread across the planet, just everywhere. Um, I notice now that I picked a green person on 420. It was not intentional. I just realized it. Anyway, so there are people all across the planet. And you think to yourself, well, okay, fine. You can't really use just one machine to serve all these servers. If there are more people who connect, it'll go down. You can't really, it'll be slow for people who are farther away from it. So you end up deploying this machine, your code on like multiple servers all across the planet. There are just like 10 here, but it could be in the hundreds, it could be in the thousands, depending on what you're doing, right? And you tell yourself, you know what? How I'll solve it? I'll store the value on a database, and I'll ask the machine to talk to a database. So you deploy a database somewhere here, but you end up facing the same problem. You don't want every one of these machines to start connecting to the same database. That can bring the database down. And so you end up deploying replicas of these database. Fine, it's not really a read-heavy thing, but whatever. You end up deploying your database to different parts of the world as well. And you can't really connect how these users connect to either the servers or the databases or like Redis or whatever else you're working on. And to start working around it, you need to start establishing connections between all the servers, and not just through all the servers, because now, like I said, you need to do replications across the databases as well. And you end up building this whole thing where they talk to each other and make sure they have a consistent view of the world. Your dream of building a shared counter, that 40 lines of code, has now become a multi-month, multi-million-dollar project. And you never get to share your multiplayer app. So this is what has happened for the last 15 years. Some enthusiastic kid will sit and build a little game over the weekend or some app, and it'll work well, and then they'll look into sharing it with the world, and they're like, no, it quickly balloons out of place. It is not, to reiterate, it is not a mistake that it takes a multi-billion, trillion-dollar company to build experiences like this. So what do we do? So it seems to me like we have a separation of concerns problem. I love that phrase, separation of concerns. No single phrase has generated more arguments on Twitter than separation of concerns. It's beautiful. But it's a separation of concerns problem. As an application developer, as a front-end developer, I do not want to have to worry about the bits of the system that actually make the money. You know what I mean? You don't have to worry about the networking. You don't have to worry about routing, and routing is not like routers, by the way. I mean, like literally like connections that connect to machines and process management. No, as a highly paid JavaScript developer, I want to argue about state management, business logic, what we are doing with CSS in that particular week of the year. These are important things to me. The lines of code I use to say that my button is blue are very important. Those are the things I want to focus on. So how do we fix this? So I keep talking about Cloudflare because I work there, but it's a cool company. Like, it's not bad. Cloudflare does this thing where they do edge compute, right? Like, they don't even build out their own data centers per se. They'll take their hardware and install it in the ISPs, like near the switches there. So, and with mobile companies and stuff like that. So anytime you actually connect to a Cloudflare site, there's a good chance it's being served like 10 to 15 milliseconds away from you. So if you go back to this diagram that I'd mentioned, by the way, you know how much time it takes to draw these arrows in Keynote? I hated myself. I was like, it sucked. And even if you do like the copy paste, it tries snapping, and you're like, no, I needed like 5 pixels this side. It was a pain in that. I started with like 20 more green people. I was like, nah, you're all dead. Like, it's done. Anyway, so we go back to this, and you look at this diagram, and it strikes you that the things that Cloudflare is good at are those parts, the parts that I don't actually want to care about. So how do we make it such that Cloudflare handles these bits for my app while I get to focus on the bits that matter? So in September 2020, they introduced this tech called durable objects. A very fascinating sci-fi tech. Never heard about it before. So it a very simple concept, but like the way they've implemented it is fascinating. Basically, they say that for a given ID, something that represents a drawing, a song, a code base, a project, they will guarantee that every user that connects to that ID connects not just to the same machine, but to the same process, the same JavaScript isolate that's running your code. And it generalizes. They take this, and you can do it like for multiple IDs across the planet. Even more fascinating, the first person who starts the document, it opens up in the isolate thing 5 to 15 milliseconds away from you. Fantastic tech. And it was in 2020, and they were looking like for use cases and figuring it out. And it struck me that building multiplayer collaborative apps, that seems like the model to build, right? So I took that, and I built something called PartyKit, which is a way too cool a name for a B2B SaaS product that I'm building. But I like it because it implies what you can do with it. It's an open source platform for collaboration. It's well, most of it is open source. The libraries, developer tooling. I'm not going to open source my dashboard because my CSS is bad. Like, no, nobody needs to see that. So it comes with 3 things. It comes with the developer tooling to build this alongside your app, so it works with your existing stack. You don't have to, you keep using Vercel, Netlify, Fly.io, Railway, whatever it is. Those are the stacks that those applications are built for. But you just run this little multiplayer server thing locally right next to it. It comes with libraries. It's kind of a new paradigm of computing. So open source a number of libraries that make it easy to build applications. You can take your Redux store and you synchronize it with one of these shared state objects. And it comes with a deployment platform. Like on top of Cloudflare, I've built a thing that you can actually deploy your code within 5 seconds across the planet. Magical stuff. And I like the API for it. So you can basically write a code that does this. Hey, give me a function that responds to a request or responds to a WebSocket. Like, it actually supports WebSockets. And it says, oh, and it gives you like a room abstraction. You're like, here are all the connections onto the room right now. And because it's all connected to the same isolate, it's just an array. Like, it's not a distributed computing problem. A broadcast is literally a for loop on the connections array inside the room. And it's kind of nice. Like, that's cool. Like, you can build the counter thing that I showed, and it just sort of works. What I like about PartyKit as opposed to other third-party services that do this is that you get to write your own code that gets deployed on these machines, unlike these other services, which are great, by the way. They have a separate set of trade-offs. Here, I'd like my users to pick their trade-offs. You can use vuejs, which is just a fascinating library for building these shared objects for text editors. You can use AutoMerge, which is from the folks at Ink and Switch. You can use like Redux. You can use Xstate, running state machines on the edge. Brilliant. Or whatever. Like, you can make like a JavaScript object that you just chuck events at. It's fine. Like, PartyKit is not opinionated about where. We'll take the operational cost and complexity away from you. You can take it and you run like PartyKit's dev server.ts that runs it locally. And once you're happy with it, you say, hey, deploy server.ts. It works with your TypeScript, node modules. I do the whole bundling thing. I ship ES builds, so great. And yeah, like there are a lot of other commands, but the mental model is, hey, you like develop it alongside your application and just deploy it to the edge. And there are a whole other number of features. And I like saying, I used to say that these are features that make it useful, but really these are features that make it useful for me. Remember that I wanted to build the counter app. Like, these are the things that I want as a software developer. So previews, much like Vercel and Netlify previews, you can do a thing where it generates a little staging deploy for you, separate from your production environment, so you can test it with your GitHub PR before you even land the code. Secret management for third-party services, you're connecting to a database or what have you. Live streaming logs. So this code gets deployed on like these hundreds and thousands of things across the planet, right? But you can say PartyKit tail for your project, and it collects all your console logs and request responses and brings it like into your terminal, which is great when like shit's going bad. Like, you're like, I need to see what's going on. Where are the 500s coming from, etc. It's cross-platform. Like, you'll write the server with JavaScript or WASM, but you can connect to it from anything. It's a WebSocket. Like, I don't really have opinions about that either. You can write it for mobile apps, React Native. Somebody should write a Swift connector for it. I hope that it'll run in Apple's new $3,000 headset that they want to announce, I assume, some point this year. It's been like 3 years they've been promising it. Integrations is an easy way for saying, yeah, it'll work with the rest of your app. Don't even worry about it. Like, whatever React, I guess, is such an overrated framework. It works with Solid, Vue, all of that. And like I said, it works with your existing stack. And it comes with analytics. That's something that's pretty important to me. You can tell how many users are connecting at a live graph of how many people are connected, how many people connected over the last 7 days. It'll give you like a breakdown of it. So if you, for example, build a product or platform on top of PartyKit, you can pass on those costs to your users based on how much they use it. It just works. Okay, so I have a demo. This should work. Okay, so I'm never really, the thing with this is the trade-off is usually that it's about like 30, 40 people in a room, which is good for a Google Doc. I mean, if you have 40 people in a Google Doc, you have a bigger problem. But this is a bigger crowd. Okay, so I'm going to put up 4 QR codes. Randomly pick any of them. It's a drawing app by the folks at TLDraw. It's a collaborative drawing app, and it's deployed onto like PartyKit infrastructure right now. Okay, so once you all get onto it, let me know, because I'll open up all these 4 tabs myself. You all on it? I'm going to count till 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Is it happening? You all seeing some drawing stuff? Well, we're about to find out, I guess. Okay, this could go horribly. Oh, don't be rude. Okay. All right, so yeah, this is just working. Like, everybody's on this. It's kind of nice. It's really smooth. If you're rude, you wait for 10 seconds and it just gets moved up. And I think I'm tempting somebody to say something rude right now, so I'm going to like quickly go back to this. What I'd like to tell you about that app is, it was built like one guy, like Steve Ruiz. He's the CEO of TLDraw, and we deployed it onto the platform. I want to show you the code for the backend, the multiplayer part of this application. It's these 8 lines of code. That's all it takes. This is production ready, spreads across the world, no extra machines, no database. It just works. And that for me is so, it makes me so happy, because it takes what was the hardest, most expensive part of the application, and it makes it like 8 lines of code. Just uses vuejs here. We have a little backend. That's quite fascinating. I'm just super happy that it's working. People like it. Um, so what comes next after this? Well, it works like for applications. A couple of things. So let's go back to this drawing. Uh, it's very exciting for me to know that I can contribute to people building out these kinds of experiences. Like I said, drawing, music applications should be a thing on this now because the latency should be a lot lower. So Ableton, Korg, if you're listening to this, reach out to me. Have your people call my people. But where do we go from here? One of the things I've been thinking about is what happens if we connect AIs to these applications? Instead of them being like chat driven, like, like they're like chat GPT or whatever, uh, what if like there was a bot that acted like a human in the context of a Google Doc or design where you start drawing part of the design and the bot comes in and like fills in the rest of the buttons? Or music, like you start building some stuff and it can give you critique and feedback. I'm working with a couple of design partners who are building like fiction writing software that's assisted by AI. I'm really looking forward to see what comes of this. Another thing I've been thinking about is what happens when you want like parties to talk to other parties. A useful one is that you can have one of these rooms to denote a user that all their devices can synchronize to. Imagine a session store that's horizontally scalable. Every user's session is 5 to 15 milliseconds away from them, and you can synchronize in an instant. By the way, I keep saying 5 to 15 milliseconds. For comparison, an eye blink is about 100 to 200 milliseconds. So in the time that it takes you to do an eye blink, you can synchronize everything across multiple machines multiple times over. And that's fascinating to me that someone can use this. So I'll ship this feature soon. Another thing that I'm super excited about, and that's because I'm friends with David, but I'm a big fan of the company Stately. So what happens when you run state machines on the edge? What happens when you can write business workflows that people can tap into, see what's going on, contribute their own actions? There's some very fascinating things that you could probably build around this. Um, Before I end this talk, I wanted to do something else. So some of you folks might follow me on Twitter. I'm very popular there. I'm the most popular JavaScript developer. Um, and I've been building this in public in the sense that I've been like showing screenshots and I'm like, hey, I landed this feature today. But the repository is private. No one's really seen it. And the thing is that I'm an open source developer. I've never been really used to doing that. So you know what I'm going to do? Because I have your attention right now, let's just go into this and change this to public. Should I do it? I want to make this repository public. Oh God, this is scary. What are the warnings? Anyone can fork a repository. No. Okay, I did. I have read and understand these effects. Confirm. PartyKit. Sorry? Wait, am I deleting? No, I'm making it public. Oh my God, password. Never mind. Okay, can everyone close their eyes for a second? No? That should do it. And yeah, it's public. PartyKit's public. Don't get mad at me. The code isn't that great, but you can find the link to our Discord, which is another thing. Please be rude. Like, it's my first time building a community on Discord. I'm too old for these things. But yeah, the repository is open. This is all the developer tooling and the libraries we're building. And there are like some secret branches I'm working on to ship things. But I like working in public. I'm kind of stupid. So I show it and people come very mad, but they tell me how to fix it. So please feel free to tell me how to do this right. Cool. So the repository is now public. I can't go back. Um, the talk is called Everything's Better with Friends because I want to build a company that reflects what my career has been so far. This is brunch from yesterday. And I was looking at the photo last night and I was like, every single time I go to these conferences or meetups, I end up meeting friends I know and friends I'm about to make. And this just has been repeating for the last 15 years of my life. JavaScript has taken me like from a small town in India to across the world. And I live in London now. Beautiful city, miserable weather, but all my friends are there. Uh, and PartyKit is something that hopes to build like multiplayer experiences and connect people. But I want to build a company around it that's kind of the same way. Sure, we'll hire and we'll do all those things, but we want to collaborate with anyone who's doing interesting stuff. It's not just about removing operational cost and complexity for everyone, but it's for doing for my friends. I want to be like, yeah, don't worry. All your apps should be multiplayer. Use PartyKit for that. I'll make it my problem and I'll take credit for it. We'll figure out what you owe me like later. Don't worry about it. I have connects with Cloudflare. I'm on their startups program. They're not charging me. I need to make sure they don't realize what a big mistake they've done. But I love this photo. I just love this photo. There are people in this that I've been friends with but never met in real life. That's such a strange experience in this community. And they all give the best hugs. I've had such a great time. So um, everything's better with friends. Work, food, companies, and projects that you build. Thanks so much for giving me the opportunity to do this, especially to Michelle. Like, she's been so nice to me, got me over here. I've had such a great time. You can find me on Twitter at 3.1. I have a Twitter account, PartyKit, and there's a website that you can actually sign up for access. Like, there's a form, and I'll give you access. I don't mind. Um, it's been real. Thanks a lot, Miami. I hope you enjoy this. Please feel free to reach out to me.